Hey there, and welcome. Sometimes it feels like local government speaks a completely different language, right? Well, today we're going to crack the code. We're diving deep into a real-life council agenda. Because this document, as stuffy as it might look, is literally the game plan for your community's future. So let's get into it. Okay, so here it is. This is the agenda for a Northern Beaches Council meeting. And yeah, I get it. It looks a bit dense, maybe a little intimidating, but trust me, hiding in all that text are decisions that affect everything, from your local park to the street you live on to the services your community really depends on. So, have you ever really stopped to think about what's being decided for your neighborhood? Who's writing that next chapter for where you live? Well, the answers, as we're about to find out, are right here in this document. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll decode some of that official jargon. Then we'll check out the huge range of topics council has to deal with. We're going to focus in on how they actually shape our suburbs, look at a couple of real-world case studies, see our decisions can be challenged, and then most importantly, we'll talk about why any of this matters to you. First things first, let's get a handle on the language. Seriously, understanding a few key terms is like getting the secret password. It lets you right into the conversation so you can actually follow what's going on. So you'll often spot something called a mayoral minute right near the start. Think of this as the mayor's chance to put something important front and center. In this one, for instance, the mayor wants to officially recognize people who received Australia Day honors and also advocate for war widows. It's a pretty direct way to get things on the official record. Okay, this next one sounds super technical. Items resolved by exception, but it's actually pretty simple. It's basically the council's express lane. You see, for all the straightforward, non-controversial stuff where the staff have already said, yep, this is good to go, they just bundle it all together and approve it in one single vote. It's a huge time saver and lets them focus on the bigger, trickier issues. All right, now that we've got some of the lingo down, let's talk about just how much ground a council actually covers. I'm telling you, it is way more than just the 3 R's: roads, rates, and rubbish. I mean, just look at the variety in this single agenda. You've got everything from financial support for the local women's shelter to how to manage feral animals humanely. Then there's the future of the Manly to Shelley Beach Walk, a debate about regulating e-bikes, and even selling off a piece of council land. Oh, and they're also asking what happened with the New Year's Eve fireworks. It really is the A to Z of community life all in one meeting. Now for the real heart of this explainer, we are zooming in on one crucial part, Section 11. This covers reports from the Planning and Place Division. This right here is where the physical future of your suburb gets decided. And because these items can be so complex, councillors get detailed briefings beforehand just to get their heads around all the details. And taking a look inside Section 11, you see a bit of a mix. But the real headliners here, the ones we're going to focus on, are items 11.1 and 11.2. Two totally different planning proposals, one for Ingleside, one for Balgowlah Heights. These are the kinds of decisions that will literally change the map, and we're about to unpack them. But hold on, before we do, what even is a planning proposal? Well, think of it as the official starting gun for trying to change the rules for a piece of land. Usually, it's all about changing the zoning, say from public parkland to a spot where you can build a house. It's the very first step in a really long and really important process. Okay, let's get practical. By putting these two proposals, Balgowlah Heights and Ingleside side by side, we can really see how these planning decisions work in the real world and how they affect different places in very different ways. First step, Balgowlah Heights. As you can see from this shot from above, we're talking about one single corner block. It's right in the middle of a pretty typical residential neighborhood, so it's small scale, but the idea behind it is a big deal. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. The land is currently zoned as RE1 public recreation. The proposal? Change it to R2 low-density residential. In plain English, that means turning it from public open space into a lot where a private house could be built. A very clear and specific change. Now, let's flip over to the Ingleside proposal. We're going from a single corner block to a much, much bigger canvas. This one covers multiple properties across 3 different streets. It's a much more significant development, and this shows you how council has to shift gears, right? From a micro decision about one lot to a macro decision that could reshape an entire area. This is exactly why those councilor briefings we talked about are so critical. So, what happens when a decision gets made, but some councilors really, really disagree with it? Is a case closed? Well, not always. There are official ways to challenge a vote, and that is where things can get very interesting. Check this out. This document is called a Notice of Motion to Rescind. It's a formal request signed by a few counselors, basically asking to cancel or rescind a decision that was made at the last meeting. And in this case, it's about the council's code of meeting practice, the actual rule book for how they run their meetings. So how does this whole thing work? Well, it's a simple but pretty powerful process. First, a decision is made. Then, if a few counselors object, they can file this notice that automatically forces the topic back onto the agenda for the next meeting. Then, they have to debate it and vote on it all over again. It's kind of like a democratic do-over. And don't think for a second that residents aren't paying attention to these rules. This quote is powerful. It comes from a public submission about that very same rulebook being debated. This person felt the changes were an attempt to thwart democracy. It's just a huge reminder that the process, the how, matters just as much as the what. So, we've decoded some jargon, we've seen the huge scope of council's work, we've even peeked behind the curtain at the politics of it all. But let's bring it home. Why does any of this wading through this big document actually matter to you? Here's the bottom line. These decisions are shaping your world every single day. And this agenda, it's not some top secret file. It's a public document available for anyone to read. Understanding what's in it, what all these terms mean, that's the absolute first step. It's what gives you the power to participate, to know when to pay attention, and to use things like public forums to actually have your say. We started by calling this agenda a script. Well, now you know how to read it, you know where to find the big plot points, you know how to spot the dramatic twists. So the real question is, the next time one of these comes out, what will you be watching for? Thanks for tuning in.